Hey everybody, welcome to the pre-market stream that we open up to the public every single Wednesday. Thanks for joining us this morning. This is Spartan speaking, by the way. Can give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of what's going to happen this morning. Once I do jump off, Mama's Options Beth will come on. She'll break down the macro environment, any news events that are happening over the course of today or that happened last evening. It makes sense to be paying attention to. She will go through the bigger picture, ETFs, commodities, or bigger picture items that makes sense to be looking at today, whatever is relevant. Once that's done, I'm going to come on. I'm going to go through the individual names that I'm looking at today that are gapping up, gapping down. We'll talk about the news associated with those gap up, gap downs. We'll go through the SPY and the FANG, as well as the Vix Cues and IWM. Get a good sense of what's going on from an ETF perspective as well in the general market. After that's done, I'll type up the action plan while Salt Beach is on, going through the analyst calls for the day, macro environment, as well as any individual names that he's looking at. And then I will jump back on and we'll take a look at the basically action plan for the morning, do a quick little recap, and then we'll be ready for the open. So without further ado, I think I'm going to go ahead, pass it over to Beth now, and I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Beth, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. Welcome. Market here, SpartanTrading.com, as Spartan shouted out. This is what we do every morning, Monday through Friday, as long as the market is open. We have a ton of stuff to talk about. Very exciting. We're seeing more constructive price action. We do have, well, everybody's saying, oh my God, look at, the CPI, right? Come on, right? Overnight, we have to keep an eye on this because Australia definitely is reflective of what the Asia Pacific rim, right? So we're seeing a little bit of softening in terms of consumer confidence, like a lot of softening, right? German balance of trade was less than expected. Imports, no expectation there. And then current account, you can see a larger surplus than expected. And that would make sense, right, in terms of cost of goods, et cetera, that you're exporting, importing. We did have an interesting on the oil yesterday, right? The API was a drawdown. I think it was a lot more than people expected. So that was kind of interesting. On a risk reward basis, and we'll go over that on the crude, it is holding on the 4-hour chart. So we have to look at that. And I still think that we're going to get a catch-up trade on the refiners versus the physical, but we'll see that, okay? This morning later, we get the EIA numbers, yada, yada, yada. Mester, we do have a talking yet. Don't forget, we have no FOMC until March, okay? All right, now this is the agricultural report. This may have some, it probably won't, but we'll just, we'll see what happens with it. I'll keep an eye on like DBA and stuff to see if there's any follow through on it. All right, so let's talk. Okay, so this is basically taking the probabilities off of surveys in terms of Fed hikes, Fed funds hikes, right? Believe it or not, the market has already priced in 5 to 7 rate hikes. Brought to December, we're here at 25 basis points, right? The current. And you can see here, if you go to 125, right, that would be 4 to 5. This would be 5, right, to 6. And then you can see farther out. So if you look at this, only 15% says we're only going to have, and this is what Twin's thesis is, that we're only going to have 4. I'm leaning towards that as well. And the reason simply is because the ricochet, the boomerang, if you tighten too aggressively, okay? We talked about this yesterday, right? About Danielle Booth saying that if you basically dwindle down the balance sheet as well as do Fed fund rate hikes, that's a double hike. And you have to be careful about that. So I suspect they'll balance it and they'll do a little bit on the Fed fund side and a little bit on the balance sheet side to get it. And I think that was probably the mistake. Well, there was no, you can't look at it because there was no Fed funds back in the Spanish flu, right? I mean, the Fed funds The whole process didn't come into existence until the 1950s. So I bet you didn't know that either. Okay, so let's move on. Our gal Liz, some really nice stuff on inflation going back 1960. But don't forget, it was oil and BOGO. It was oil. And interestingly enough, 37% of this inflation is a function of automobiles. Okay. And we know that it was very expensive, right, in terms of buying, as well as resale and all that stuff. So see how that plays out. You know, I was talking to twins, and I just don't know what would be considered a hot number on this. So expecting 7.1%, which is really quite something, right? 7.1%. We'll see, right? Another thing that I found was really interesting was this. Okay, so let's take a peek at this. This is basically the percentage of members with at least 20% drawdown, 76% of the NASDAQ, 82%. Hell with that. Let's go to 50% drawdown. 46% of the NASDAQ, 46 year to date, 46% of the NASDAQ, right, is down 50%. 34% in the Russell. Seriously, you know, people talk about the indices, but good golly, who cares when you've got stocks down 50, 40 in basically a little over a month? This is so important, okay, that you just can't underestimate the loss of wealth based off of this. It's insanity, right? So, just saying, down market for the 2022 so far. Okay, I want to introduce you. This is actually fairly interesting. I want to introduce you. I'm sure a lot of you are saying, "Oh, what is she doing now?" All right, Benjamin Graham. I haven't heard this name. I can't even tell you how long. Okay, this is the father of value investing. What you look at. Okay, the dude was in the early 1900s, and his work is still seminal. It's still very important. And a lot of people say that the intelligent investor is still the gold star in terms of as a book to read. If you haven't, I encourage you to look at it, okay? So Winston Churchill famous said, never let a good crisis go to waste. So this article from Seeking Alpha is going over Meta, Facebook. And it basically ticks off all the boxes, right? So they created a scanner, and I actually have a similar scanner in terms of PE multiples, growth, and I don't include year-to-date loss, which is kind of fascinating, right? And you can see here, this is the list, right? So, so this BCH actually interests me. So I love this sort of work where you look at a company that makes money, got it, still has, a much lighter PE multiple, realistically speaking. These are the things I like to look at. And this is why, for me right now, it's a value trade. How can it not be? And here's, you can see here, Facebook, right? 10 most beaten down stocks. Look at this. Look at this. If the S&P is pricing in a 15%, right, in terms of profits, right, and the return here is 166%, 27%. CLX, Moderna, it's stunning. The lack of understanding that throwing the baby out with the bathwater looks like. I just thought I wanted to show you this. To me, it's a bounce. To me, it's a long term on 2024. I don't care. I got fantastic deltas on. I do not care. Okay. So what are we seeing? We're seeing a continuation, right, in terms of surprises on the upside, right? Obviously, those on the downside are getting punished as they should. CBS was interesting because I was talking to twins about this. The market is actually selling it off on a filing, which doesn't, I mean, and as twins said, it's not new news, but It wasn't another, okay. And then on the other side, this is still important to look at, is this insider buybacks, right? PayPal yesterday, right? 164, $4.28 million, right? Just say, President and CEO, he said, okay, I'm buying. Asan was, we already talked about Asan before, but you can see here as well. This is Vox, right? And you can see the amount coming in. SSIC, fantastic, right? So this is important. So what do we want to see? And this is the theme, right? We want to see divvies, right? Increases. We want to see buybacks, and we want to see insiders buying. These are the things that we want to see to stabilize this market. And these are the things that stabilized the market in 2020 with COVID. These are the things that stabilized the market in 2018. Analysts got so built up, they just everybody was lowered, everything. Remember October, November, December of 2018? And then we started to see the money coming in as a value trade. Okay, so Vortex tried to make longer term recoveries. Okay, XOK breath. Like I said, I mean, it's stunning what is going on, right? And to me, I don't care about day to day. I don't even care about week to week, month to month. I'm just saying, I'm making a statement, 2024, and that will lead us into one of our members had asked about Corey, about what I saw yesterday. Well, so we'll see how this plays out, okay? All right, so technology, what does it mean? Going back to 1952, when the tech sector, members greater than 200-day average from less than 25% to greater than 50% in 10 days. What does it mean? Add drum roll, please. 2 months out, 6.3, 3 months, 6 months. 1 year. So what we saw was, melt up phase, right? Then we saw individual bear markets in multiple stocks, crazy ass amount, right? Now we're seeing constructive price action. Spartan seeing it. We're seeing it on the small cap low floats. We're seeing it on the daily charts, right? Take one day at a time, right? We're seeing on the weekly charts major holds of key EMA support. So this is how we slowly start to see things grind higher. Yesterday, SPY, money coming out, way to go, cubes. Excellent. Okay, cool. Here's the heat map. Bonds obviously is very low. It's a fine heat map. Right? So, yesterday we saw a few things. This XME, right, is basically miners, right? Different commodities. So that is an important thing to look at. So we started to see like Triple Macmillan, we saw Cameco, we saw Cleveland Cliffs, we saw aluminum. All these things, this is what we want to see. These are important pieces to the puzzle for what the market is looking at in terms of opening trades, reopening trades. And that's what we saw yesterday as well. All right. So here we have nobody. I don't have a 70%er. Can't do a damn thing with this one. JP Morgan, big lots, sell, but I'm sorry, but it's a success rate for me. It ain't there. Okay, he's got a 56% success rate. Sorry, dude. Knows can do. Right? Everybody has their standards. Yesterday, oh my goodness. Okay, what did we say? Constructive price action across multiple sectors, and there were multiple names involved. This is fantastic. This is what we want to see. We want to see the same thing today. Yesterday was the first day that basically those peeps who like to sell at the end of the day yank it. It didn't work. Okay, and I came out immediately and said that, hey, in order for this to be constructive, that's not gonna work, right? We also saw money coming out of energy. That's positive as well. It would make sense, right? 23% in 1 month is not sustainable. We have to see money rotating out, and we have to start seeing it going into the higher beta as well in terms of the tech names, consumer discretionary, communication services. This is what we have to see it in. And that's what we started to see it in. Okay. All right. Here we go. Still very light. I mean, stock volume as well as option volume is still light, and you can see it, right? What do I want to see? I want to see NVIDIA. I want to see Apple continue to go higher. That's two of the things. I want to see Microsoft, okay, and Facebook. That's what I want to see today. I want to see them to continue to grind higher, continue to build off of their positive price action yesterday. So yeah, as a Corsia, GME, APPS, Cmg, and Phase, obviously earnings names, Hog, LDI, Peloton, and Race. So we're getting more interest, right, on the social media side. Okay, all right. What to do? This is going to help Corey. Yesterday, I shouted out two things. I said IWM is leading, one, which is what we need to see. Number two, I have hundreds and hundreds of longer dated trades on in Facebook, in Microsoft, right? I have it in different ETFs. I have it in Apple. I have it in Amazon. I have all kinds of stuff out there, right? We commented on Monday, right? And that basically, they literally gutted all the premiums. So what makes the cost of an option? One of the most important things, well, you have the underlying equity, obviously, right? You have time, but when you're long 2024, time is not an issue, right? You have delta. I'm in 0.01, 0.02, 0.05 deltas, very, very low deltas, right? The thing that matters is volatility premium, okay? All the calls, the volatility premium got yanked by, I would have to say, 80%. And they even commented that, and I mentioned this on Monday, right? In terms of the collapse of the gamma, right? So basically that's the velocity, right, of the delta. The gamma collapsed. We saw it in the price action, okay? You saw it in options, right? That's why Spartan has had to go closer to in the money, because if you went too far out of the money, nothing moved, it didn't work, okay? So that's what we were seeing. Yesterday, we started to see longer dated, I started to see that the longer dated options, the gamma started to pick up. We started to see the premiums start to build up again. Nowhere near, don't forget when the VIXes started coming in, okay, you're gonna see a pancake of volatility premium. Irregardless, what they had done was gutted it. That's the first thing. Market makers, there's a bias. The vast majority of people never made, prices, wasn't a market maker, okay? A market maker, and I was a market maker at one time, okay? Basically, you skew your bias on your bid and your ask, right? If you raise your bid, you want someone to sell to you. That's bullish, okay? If you lower your offer, okay, it's the opposite. You want to sell. So the market makers give us a bias as to what they're looking at. When you're looking at a stock, you have to look at the bid ask. You have to look how wide it is. And you also have to look at the delta in terms of, okay, what is their bias? Right? If they do it intraday, it's all, you have to start learning to look at these things. These are clues, these are like breadcrumbs, okay, that tell you what's going on. Example, underlying stock selling off, you're in calls. The calls stay bid. The market makers are telling you they see something, they think the stock is going higher, right? The complete opposite, right? Let's say the stock goes up, but the bids on the calls goes down. That means they're concerned that this is a top. So it's a yin and a yang. It really does help provide an insight as to what we're seeing. Okay, let's do it. Hope that helps, Corey. All right, Sugar bonds. still, in this quadrant, from there. Here's the 2 5s, 5s, 2s. You can see the 5s are starting to, it's starting to, the yield curve here between the 2s and 5s is steepening a little bit. Right? Here's the 5 10s. Not much going on. Like I said, I don't see anything until we get the FOMC. Some people are pricing in a 2 rate hike, 50 basis points. Good luck with that. Anyways, 5:30. Interesting. Looks like we're going to start breaking out. A little bit of a double top. This is a monthly chart, right? I keep saying that the yield curve is going to invert. The job of the Fed right now is to prevent that from happening. It's their job. I'm serious. That's their job. Yield curve when it inverts, economics 101, recession. I think it does, and then I think that the Fed will do its balancing act in terms of what it does with the balance sheet as well as the Fed fund rates. Okay. All right, so this is really interesting here. Okay, this is September 2021. As you can see here, this is the Qs, mind you. You can see it linear. This is basically the low and it's holding for now. We'll see what happens with that, right? You can see here that it is holding the breakout here. Don't forget that the 10-year, it's the 5-year. I keep saying it. The taper is the 5-year, not the 10-year. And you can see how more advanced the 5 years against the 10-year. Chinese new one, I still think they have to devalue, lower their interest rates. Germany, this is crazy. They're not going to tolerate this too long. Interestingly enough, we're at some pivots. This is actually the degree in which this has gone up. Think about this. This has gone up from flat. This is just a month. We're only talking about the 9th in the month. This is really stunning, and the Bundesbank is not going to like that. Let's take a look at the dollar. There you go, dollar. I was talking about the EU to the euro to someone. There is no way that the ECB is going to allow the euro to go crazy in terms of its strength, right? It's a Chinese new one. Like I say, has to weaken, right? All right, let's do cryptos. We do it every day. Up, nice, still holding in there. Right? I mean, you know what I'm in, right? Here's block, I'm in this. Looking more constructive. This is like Riot, overstock, stuff like that. BTC, right? Bitcoin, here you go. We haven't broken the downtrend on the monthly yet. We'll see how that plays out, right? Yeah, it's Ethereum, BTC. It's actually getting to the mid, nothing there for us, right? In terms of clues, here's Ethereum, same thing, inside month. I don't see that changing, actually. Commodities, let's take a look at that. Gold is up. We've been talking about that. Copper, platinum, palladium. Oil is down. Okay, this is actually not a bad thing, right? Natural gas is down. You know that I'm in strangle with puts against calls. That's working nicely. Aluminum still pushing here. Notable. Zinc, nickel. These are all industrial metals, right? Silver, all this stuff. This is what we want to see. All of the commodities. We're in a commodity super cycle. Don't get too cute with stuff, friends. I'm just saying, okay? My time is up, but I'm going to continue to prattle on right now. All right, CRB, you can see here into the, I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I think we break out, but I think we're going to consolidate for natural gas pulling back down. I probably will take off the rest of my puts into this. Risk reward is on a bounce right now. Here's the crude. You can see they're still hanging in there. 85.41 is still the pivot on the downside. So we're still above that. Yeah, this is really interesting. This is why I think gold's going to pop. This should have yanked. It didn't. Okay, here's gold. You can see that. Let's see if I'm right. We got on in before the crowd. All right, stock indices. Let's do it. DAX, FES, EFA. Everything's holding fine. Composite, Shanghai bouncing. We talked about that yesterday. FXI looking a little better. It's got work. I mean, obviously, we got to get through this. Then we got to get through that. I mean, we're talking months here, friends. A shares, I don't care. It's financials. KWeb, I wish it was a green candle. EEM, let's see if that bounces. This is like BABA, you know that, Tencent, yada, yada. CQQQ, interesting. It broke, but it's still actually trying to hold this extension as well as the lower end of the quadrant. So this is also interesting too. I mean, both are rallying equally, okay? VXN is really has to come down. This has been so sticky for so long. We really have to see this really start coming down. Vix VXN, it's actually the lower quadrant, which is interesting. So that means that the VXN is weakening faster than, I'm sorry, the VIX is weakening faster than the VXN. FANG, still holding this reversion of the mean, 13, this is the 20, right, on the Bollinger. So let's see if we can do it. Still has a lot of work to be done, right? So here we have IWN, growth value, you know that story there. We want to see growth bounds, growth value, we want to see that story there. All right, so let's take a look at this. Is okay. I wanted to show this to you. This is the XRT. You really have to understand what's in the components of it. This is what's in it. Not a good look, right? So what do we got? Here's the XRT. It is bouncing double bottom in place on the monthly. So let's take a look. These are the ones that I like. Okay, so this is Dollar Tree. Beautiful curl there. Probably going to be one of those little cup and handle doodads. Dollar General still has a lot of work to be done there. AEO, this is one that I like as well, but I haven't seen anything. I only do this on call sweeps, Nike call sweeps as well, but it's holding the monthly, right? So this is one of the sectors we want to see start to pick up, right? Dow Transports, we want to see this start to pick up as well. So we want to see FedEx, UPS, we want to see the rails, yada, yada, yada. Here's the financials. Interesting, right? It's below. I still want to see this go higher. I'm in a number of XLF trades, longer dated, some short dated. XLY, fantastic, right? It needs to reclaim this extension on the weekly. Nice little bounce going on. That's Amazon, Tesla. All right, so let's take a look at this IHF. This is, you know, when you're looking at the healthcare, the XLV is not what you think it is. So this is a true healthcare ETF. United Health, CVS, yada, yada. Okay. So here's the IHF. You can see here, beautiful, consolidative, monthly. No damage was done on the pullback on this one. Here's the XLV. You see the difference, right? Pfizer, AbbVie, right? So a lot of pharmaceuticals are in here. Okay, not as much on the healthcare side, but more on the pharmaceutical side. Okay, as well as like Medtronics. You know the drill. Okay, so here's XLV. Still looking fine, but it has to reclaim this monthly extension, right? Here's XLK, same thing, holding up fine on the monthly. Right? Here's XLP, consumer staples still flagging, that's fine on the monthly. Here's XLE, this is interesting, okay? I have a little bit of XLE puts, I'll add into it if it breaks below the 67.38.
All right, Beth, I'm ready to pop on whenever.
Let's have fun.
Let's do it. Alrighty, guys, morning. What's going on? Let me just pop up the screen share here again. Let's take a look at what we got going on this morning. A couple of different things that we're watching today, guys. Let's just take a look at that. And if you guys are new to chat, make sure to check out the new to chat information section. Scroll from the very top, read it from top down. I'll go over that once we do close down the YouTube stream later on. Pre-market tickers on watch. A couple of different things that we're looking at today, guys. CMG earnings beat EPS and revs year-over-year growth 22%. Tesla gapping up in sympathy with the market. Shop gapping up in sympathy with the market. EMPH earnings beat EPS and revs year-over-year growth 55.8%. Q1 guidance raised. Newer earnings miss EPS and rev beat year-over-year growth 22.4%. Q4 guidance lowered. EPS and rev in lines. Sorry, EPS lowered, rev in line. Gapping down. TCS earnings beat EPS and revs year-over-year growth -3%. Q4 guidance lowered. EPS and rev in line. Stocks gapping down. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday, and beautiful gap up on the SPY, guys. Guess what? Our 455 calls that we overnighted are in the money. So we'll see if that can hold up into the open. We'll certainly be selling the rest of those, or yeah, we will be. Why would we keep them? CMG and Tesla. Let's take a look at these two guys. First two names we'll look at from a technical perspective. So obviously CMG gapping up on the earnings. And they also said that they could raise their prices to increase margins if they needed to. I think that was a pretty good positive for them off the earnings conference call. That was. Investors don't really need to worry as much about inflation with these guys. They can pass the cost to the consumer. Let's take a look at what we got going on intraday here. So obviously gapping up. 50 MA is the big level of resistance to the upside today, which is also going to act as that pivot point. There we go. Zoom out a little bit. All right. So that 1563 will be the pivot to the upside today. That level is able to hold 1599 to 1631 will be tested. Unable to hold on CMG, we look for a pullback towards 1523. If that level breaks, 1558 will be tested on the downside. Overall on CMG, I'm going to be leading on the bullish side today, looking for continuation push higher. I do like the chart off the lows. I like the movement off the earnings as well. I think it was quite positive. I've seen that in a lot of different names, and it's got some nice room to the upside today. So we'll see what happens there. That's CMG. Let's take a look at Tesla. So glad we grabbed that roll for overnight, guys. I am looking for that Tesla breakout today. That's going to be a big key to be watching for. Let's actually label that level at 948.39. Pivot to the upside today, 926.39. That level holds. 948.39 will be tested, which is that breakout resistance on the upside. That level breaks, 980.68 will be tested. Unable to hold, 886.73 to 858.04 on the downside will be tested. Overall on Tesla, leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push higher today if that pivot point can hold. That's CMG. That is Tesla. All right, let's take a look at the next two names, guys. Shop and EMPH. I'm leaning both bullish on CMG and Tesla, by the way, today, guys. If you missed it. All right, Shop, EMPH. GMPH is a heck of a gap up. Look at that. Beautiful. It did smash earnings today, though. Yesterday. Let's take a look at Shop off the lows. What do we got? So I think we may have. We may not have that downtrend break, but let's look. Yeah, we may actually. Yeah, we do. Nice. So a little bit of a downtrend break, EMA support reclaim on the daily as well. I believe we're above 916. Nope, not actually, not yet. Okay, so that's an important level to be paying attention to. Remove that. There we go. Okay, so what do we got on Shop here today? We have 916.54 is your pivot to the upside today, which is that 50 or not 50. That's that EMA short-term reclaim on the daily. That level is able to be reclaimed. We do have room for continuation of 958 to 999. Unable to hold, 879 to 839 will be tested on the downside. Downtrend broken on the daily. Next key is to get back above that pivot for continuation higher. I am leaning bullish neutral if that pivot point can reclaim. If what we've seen lately is Shop being unable to push through a lot of resistance levels and getting rejected. Keep that in the back of your head, because if it does fail, I do think it will come back in towards last day's low. So I am leaning bullish just because the market is up and holding. And we'll talk about the SPY in a little bit, but I think we can get continuation on a bunch of these tech names off the lows today. Let's take a look at EMPH. Gorgeous chart on the daily. Look at that, guys. Like, look at that. Nice little range break to the upside off of earnings. You're above the 50 MA. You're into this little range here. I really like this. It's clean. Very nice. Let's get that range labeled as well. 177.50, 212. It's got to be another resistance before that. Indeed, there is. 201.57. I think we're good. Yep. Okay, let's take a look at this chart intraday. Very clean, technically driven chart. I like this a lot. Okay, so we're not going to be able to see the upper end resistance levels, which is okay. So I'll just keep it on the daily. So we're at about 177.50 was the high in the pre-market. At the moment, we're at about 176.80. So 174.86 will be your pivot to the upside today. That level is able to hold. You got room towards 191.58 to 201.57. Unable to hold 161.67 to 147.46 will be tested on the downside. Overall on EMPH, looking for continuation push higher. I think the earnings were great. I love the daily chart for continuation. Going to be leaning bullish for continuation today on it. Should be able to push, in my opinion. At shop, that's EMPH. All right, let's take a look at the next two, Newer and TCS. So Newer, 81.27, gap down here. So basically breaking through this bullish consolidative range back to the downside. That's pretty pretty bearish. Okay, let's see here. Quite an ugly looking chart at the moment. I can go up a little bit. 79.2. That's deleted. Okay. Let's take a look at this thing intraday here, guys. Get rid of that. And there you go. Perfect. So basically into the gap on the downside. 81.10 pivot, levels able to be reclaimed, room towards 85.62 to 90.61. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards 75.57 to 70.52 on the downside. Overall on Newer, going to be leaning bearish, looking for continuation lower if that pivot point cannot hold. So we'll keep an eye on that. Pivot points unable to hold, room for continuation lower. TCS, let's take a look at this. So pretty decent gap to the downside here. Earnings weren't terrible, but they did lower their EPS guidance, and it has been on a pretty good tear. So that certainly is notable at the moment. Okay. That should be good. 640 support. Okay. Let's take a look at this thing on the intraday chart. Pivot to the downside today, 817. Levels able to be reclaimed, 878 to 934 will be tested. Unable to held, 747, 697, and then 640 on the downside. Going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side out the gate. I do think we get a little bit more of a pull, and then I do think it will find support at the lower end support levels that we've labeled at some point, and you get a curl back to the upside. Earnings weren't terrible by any means, but they did guide their revenue down, so I can, certainly tell why they gapped down 3 points this morning. Makes sense. Anyone lowering guidance this earnings season is getting smacked, but I do think it's not, super significant. It's not a huge change. So I think that, anything more than 30% is probably not unwarranted in my opinion, but we'll see. We'll see. So that's Newer, that's strange, or that's Newer, that's TCS. Let's take a look at SPY. Let's have a look at this. What is that? Drink of tea there. Okay, SPY, let's take a look at this, guys. So I'm going to pop up this to the daily chart here. What do we got? So SPY, obviously trying to break this flag to the upside. Well, it did flag to the upside. Trying to break this interflag range, which it did in the after hours. Now the range on that flag to the upside is the next big level to be tested on the daily there. We do look good for continuation towards that 50 MA pretty much right out the gate. 45.94. Let's change this to that. 455.94. There she is. All right, let's take a look at this thing intraday. So we've essentially got some decent room to the upside. Big level of resistance right out the gate. 455.92, we'll just call it, even though it's 94. That level is able to break 458.33 to 460.03 will be tested on the upside. Unable to hold 453.64 to 450.90 on the downside. Overall on the SPY, I'm going to be leaning bullish today. I do think we can get continuation higher. I'll be looking for a test of that pivot out the gate. And then once that pivot is tested, we'll see what's what. That's going to be the biggest level. You know, obviously you can break the 50, maybe we can squeeze higher into the top end of the range. I do think this move caught a lot of people off guard overnight. Like there are and still were people positioned on the short side that will have to probably get out if we get above that 50 MA. So that 50 MA is going to be a key level of resistance on the intraday and daily chart. Got to keep an eye on that. The fact that we reclaimed weekly range at 449 is very positive. The fact that we were able to hold up that flag, very positive. Now we'll see if we get that continuation. We haven't really had a squeeze in a while, so it would be interesting to see. Okay, we should link these two charts so then we don't have to do that. Okay. What do we got on Apple? Flag to the upside yesterday. Really nice chart. Now we're breaking this range in the short term, that 176 level. Probably move that down. I guess we'll keep it there as well. 177, 176.33. Pretty much at that resistance. All right. Pivot to the upside today, 176.33. This level is able to hold. We got room for continuation into the 179.58 spot. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback towards 173.90 on the downside. Overall on Apple, going to be leaning bullish neutral. Looking for a continuation push to the upside today if that pivot point can hold. Pivot point holds, we got room higher. Simply put. All right, let's take a screenshot of that. Let's move on to Amazon. Apple. All right, Amazon guys, let's take a look at this. Apple looks fantastic. Amazon. Well, what do we got? We got a 50 MA reclaim on the daily. That's great. That's nice and positive. There's your downtrend break. That's setting up on the daily here. Let's get this level labeled. Pivot 32.54, level holds 33.42 will be tested. Unable to hold 31.30 to 30.60, leaning bullish. Neutral, looking for a continuation push higher today if we can break above that downtrend and hold the pivot, guys. So we're coming into some big resistance out the gate, but I do think the name's been fairly constructive the last couple of days. Extended into the 50 MA, reclaimed it. And I think it's ready to push. Next step is just getting above that pivot intraday now. Let's take a look at Netflix. $424. Okay. Let's get that range off the lows. Pivot to the upside today, 413.88. Levels able to be reclaimed. Redeem rewards, 429. Actually, it's redeem rewards 424, then 429. Unable to hold 406, 394 on the downside. Overall on Netflix, still going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side today, guys. The lack of bounce in it has been terrible in the last couple days. And I'm not sure if that price action will continue, but it looks like it may. That is Netflix. Let's take a look at Facebook. Facebook a little surprising, right? Things being quite bearish. Yesterday kind of felt like a blow off to the downside. And you also did have this, I guess, kind of like hammer candle on the downside. Certainly is extended on the daily. Like, do I always forget to label my levels here? All right. 224.64 pivot levels able to hold 233.83 to the 241.41 level will be tested. Unable to hold 215.27 to the 207.11 on the downside. Overall on Facebook, leaning bullish neutral, looking for a continuation push higher today. Looking for a hold of that pivot. That's going to be the key, guys. Break and hold of 224.64. Unable to do so, my guess is that seller is going to be back in there and hammering the stock to the downside. This is one to be very patient with. And I think if you do anything on the equity or option side, you do start small and you do wait for confirmation, certainly before adding into the position. Wouldn't want to add without confirmation. All right, let's take a look, guys, at Google here. So what do we think about Google? Well, it did fill the gap from earnings completely yesterday. I think now you may find some support. 28.14 pivot levels able to be reclaimed. You got room towards the 28.65. That level breaks. We can see further continuation on the upside into 28.02. Whoops, 28.02, 28.92. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see with all these levels. I'm trying to delete them. There we go. That level's unable to hold, or pivot's unable to hold. 27.95 to 27.05 on the downside will be tested. Overall on Google, like I said, leaning a little bit on the bullish neutral side today, looking for continuation push higher if that pivot point can hold. So that is Google. All right, let's take a look at the Vix Cues and IWM, which is going to be very interesting to look at. Okay. Vix Cues, IWM. So what do we got on the VIX? A little extended to the downside on the daily, but we can hold extensions for multiple days. Whoops, on the downside. That is notable. Pivot to the downside today, 21.17. This level is able to hold. Room towards 2017 to 1928. Unable to hold, or able to be reclaimed. 22.51 on the upside will be retested. We'll see what happens with the VIX. Interesting setup this morning. That extension's got me thinking that we probably will get rejected at the 50 MA on the upside test on the SPY. But of course, we'll wait and see. QQQs. Uh, 362.56 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold 365.33 to 369.36 will be tested. Unable to hold 358.48 to 355.35 on the downside. Overall, in the QQQs, going to be leading on the bullish neutral side today as well, looking for continuation higher. Reclaimed EMA support on the daily looks good for continuation higher. It's got a long way to go to get towards that 50 MA. So this is why I'm thinking tech has room to bounce. IWM, which the best looking of all the indices right now, guys, IWM. So you do have that range break in the short term to the upside, which is beautiful, to say the least. And I do believe it has room, but I think we got something before 204 and 209. No, we do have that pivot range. 207, okay. So IWM 204.81 pivot levels able to hold. 207.09 will be tested today. Unable to hold. 203, 201 on the downside. Love the daily chart. Looking for a hold of 204.81 for continuation higher, leaning bullish. Looking for confirmation pretty quick out the gate, and I think we'll see the next leg up. If 207 is reclaimed, guys, that means it's reclaiming a monthly range support, which will be a huge level to get back above. That would be extremely constructive for the small caps in the short term. So keep an eye on that level today. See where we close above. If we can close above 207, that's going to be a big deal. So keep an eye on that. So that's the SPY, the FANG, the individual names that we're looking at today, guys. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to South Beach while I type up that pre-market action plan. And then we'll do a quick little recap when I come back on of everything, and we'll be ready for the open. South Beach, if you're ready, it's all yours for now.
Okay, guys. All right, let's see what we got today. Okay. Let's see. We walk in the bonds down 0.016, but was up pretty good yesterday, trading at their highs basically since what, 2019, I think it was. So 1.936 is the number. And the curve is the lowest I've seen at 0.14. Okay. So the bond market's telling us that growth is going to moderate. All right, which is probably good for if you're hoping that the bond market, the Fed doesn't get too aggressive. I think that kind of fits that narrative for now. Okay, over in Europe, let's look at London. Their 10-year is down 0.047. Okay, but really that yield has really spiked in the recent few weeks. And that curve, believe it or not, is 0.10. So their bond market basically saying the same thing. Okay, bond markets are lower in the euro area as well. One of the governors there was saying basically that they're not as hawkish as the market is taking it for now. So their bond market, bringing in some of this big move that they've had. Okay. Let's look at commodities. So we have oil flat again. Okay, these oil stocks took a drubbing yesterday. Natural gas is down to 4. Okay, 407. So that's a big come down from where it was, 2 weeks ago when it hit close to 650. So that's a huge move. Maybe the natural gas market is telling us something. I'll circle back to that in a second. And if you look at the metal market, copper is pretty much in this quiet trading range. And the agricultural commodities are, again, they just don't come in. They're staying pretty much where they are. Okay. Let's look at the currency market. Dollar's down against North America, down against the yen, flat against China, and euro's pretty flat. So the currency market basically has been super quiet. All right, crypto, we got Bitcoin down 1%, Ethereum up 2, Solana up 1 and change. Nothing really there. And let's look at the foreign markets. Okay, the FTSE's up 0.5%, DAX 1.5%, CAC 1.5%, Nikkei 1%, China's up 1%, little less than that, and Hong Kong's down up 2%. But the market that interests me the most, actually, is the Russian market. Okay, it's gone from 4,300. It went from 4,300 to 3,200 in a hurry. Okay, look, the Russian people don't want war any more than we do. Okay, let's call it the way it is. All right, and that market has snapped back pretty good to 3,600. So recouping probably a third of the loss, which I think is significant. And you couple that with the natural gas market, and I think, and couple that with what what's the name was saying yesterday, the venture capital guy. It'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, the guy was Rubenstein. Thanks, twins. Appreciate that. He was saying basically that he thinks that this is Russia's gonna stand down. And the market is kind of telling us that, listen, what's the big X factor in the market? We have two things. We have the Fed, which I'll talk about in a minute, and we have this standoff in Russia, right? That's with Ukraine. Okay, if that Russia thing goes away, I mean, I think that's it's a big to-do, all right? Because these, some of these commodity prices should come in a little bit, okay? Especially energy, all right? And that would be a super positive as far as the inflation situation that we're in, and it gives the Fed, the Fed governors globally a little breathing room as to how aggressive they have to be in raising rates. So I think that's a big deal. And I'm starting to sense that, there's going to be a diplomatic situation here. Rubenstein alluded to the fact that Russia put themselves in a bad spot and they're looking for a way out. He has obviously sources that, we don't have. Like he's got businesses all over the world. The market's starting to tell me that he's maybe right. Okay, so let's keep an eye on that. I think that's super important stuff. All right. What else is going on? We had Rick Reeder on. I think that guy is a stud. Super smart, been very right about a lot of things. And let's go over what he said, okay? So he's, the inflation, CPI numbers coming out, tomorrow? I think it is, Thursday? Tomorrow's Thursday, yeah. Okay, tomorrow. Double check that, yeah. Okay, so the street's looking for around 7%, more or less. And he thinks that's a fair number, okay? But that's looking in the rearview mirror. Let's look at what's going to be going forward. And he's thinking that the inflation rate should go down to around 3% by year end. He doesn't think you're going to be able to put high wages and rents back in the bottle, but he thinks that effectively the demand by consumers will slow down, and some of this supply snafu will alleviate. Okay, I also believe that Companies have double ordered in the semiconductor area, which should slow things down a little bit there as well. And so I think if you look forward just a little bit, it's not as bad as people think. Okay, so the inflation rate, if it moderates in most areas, and you can get down to 3%, which is, listen, the Fed target has been 2% forever, all right? And they haven't been able to get it to that level, and they've been bummed about it. Now, okay, 3%, that's not so bad, all right? It doesn't set up a bad narrative for the stock market. And with rates at what, 1.9% and inflation running, let's use the 3% number, okay? Let's be super aggressive and say, okay, we only have 3% inflation. Well, that's a good narrative for equities, okay? You can get some dividend income, et cetera, et cetera. And so just to further talk about what he said, he thinks one of the areas of problems is rents, the other is wages. He doesn't see that problem going away anytime soon because rents is a lack of supply, and wages, you're not going to take wages away from people once you give it to them. He says, but maybe that's not so bad. They'll spend more money. And so, okay, we have a 3% inflation rate. I don't think that's too terrible. It's probably healthier than lower than that, 1% or whatever. So the Fed just needs to be careful as far as draining liquidity is one thing he said. And he sees both he and Rubenstein see inflation moderating, supplies increases, demand wanes, etc. Okay. So his outlook basically for equities is he thinks, the next few weeks could be a little tricky, but for the year, he's looking for 10% returns. Okay. Which I think is a fair number. For me, that translates to, I want to sell premium like I wanted to in Peloton. A few people asked me, I'll go back to that in a minute, but that's his narrative. Now let's talk about Bostic, who has been kind of a little bit on the hawkish side. So he was just interviewed on CNBC. He's the head of the Atlanta Fed, and he didn't sound hawkish to me at all. Okay, he's inflation 3% for the year, just like Rick Reeder saw. All right, he sees 3 increases, maybe 4, and he said some things that he was really very open about what's going on in these closed meetings of the Fed, which I thought was very refreshing. He said, we don't even discuss a 0.5 point increase, to be honest. He said, I can't take it off the table, but when we do our modeling, when we sit in interview, in meetings and so forth, 25% is the number we use. And his body language was very, you could learn a lot from watching the body language on these guys. I've made a good amount of money just reading the body language. And his body language was, we're going to take it slow and steady. We don't want to disrupt the market. We're going to be very prudent. And so if you think these guys are going to, cut off the market and raise rates and reduce their balance sheet, in a very careless way, I don't think that's happening. Okay. I think they're going to be very pragmatic. I think they're going to, have a couple of increases to try to get back to what they feel is the right rate. And then it's going to be a wait and see kind of situation. All right. So let me see if I took any notes that I thought was interesting. So 3 or 4 increases, all options on the table. Trajectory is what he's watching of the bond market, of inflation. And so I think that's all positive for equities, okay? So I expected him to come on and knock the futures down. And in my opinion, he was very, his stance was pro equities. It would be a positive for equities, okay? So that was that. Let's see what else is going on today, okay? Pelosi with the stock trading is a little bit laughable, right? But I guess she's succumbed to the pressure and they're going to stop stock trading, whatever. Anyway, who cares? South Beach, agree on the Fed governor interview, so we tempered down 5 to 6 interest rates. Yes, exactly, Roger. Okay, so let's talk individual situations, all right? Peloton CEO comment, quote, this morning, I'm here for the comeback story. This company is not going to be sold, in my opinion, unless some guy comes in and makes a really attractive bid. And the Microsofts and whoever, Amazons of the world, they don't really do that. They're not into doing deals that are, they'll ask you if you want to be bought out and then they'll proceed. They don't make hostile bids. I haven't seen a hostile bid from one of these guys ever. So I think this guy's moving from California to New York. He's going to turn the company around. It's going to take a while. So those of you that said what now in Peloton, my answer was sell premium. I live with that. Okay. I'm a seller of premium in that name. I think the trend will be higher, but in a slower way. Okay. And I think this guy is the right guy. And I think the key thing for Peloton, what were they saying? Their stickiness, the number of people that leave that stay on their platform was something, the retention rate, I think they call it, was above 90%. That's unbelievable, guys. Okay. A subscription model with over 90% retention in that space. I think this is a good growth story that was run poorly by a CEO that only knew how to, dance to one song, and they're bringing in another guy who is more adept at playing, his hand at a different song. And the new song is going to be slower growth, increase, maybe in one or two new pieces of equipment and keep the subscriptions up and what have you. Okay, so I think the story's good. I just think it's going to be a long one, and I think the easy money's been made. Okay, but I do like the stock to go higher. All right, so that was that. What did we have a deal today? RSG and ECOL. Okay, so that's that. Numbers wise, we had a couple of guys with numbers. Docs was good. Chipotle is going to accelerate their growth forecast. They're going to accelerate their restaurant openings. Chipotle is an exciting story. That's what I could say with that. XPO Logistics was good. PAYC. NCR had good numbers, and they're exploring strategic alternatives. Maybe a call spread on the long side is, appropriate in this name. SCSC is good. Hub Group, Omnicom had a good numbers. Surprising on that one, actually. Chef was good. That's that. This end phase, which I was in yesterday, which I sold before earnings, up 30. But you know what? You can't look in the rearview mirror. I don't hold things for earnings, so I don't feel bad about it one bit. But it should get the group going. This stock and SEDG are best of breed in this space. Maybe FSLR and Run are second and third, but these two are really far and away the best two companies in the group, but it will get this group up. Okay, so that solar group should be good. And I'm thinking maybe it carries into EV because it's the same kind of trade. So we'll see. On the short side, NEWR shit the bed. If you recall last quarter, these guys knocked the cover off the ball. Now they miss and the stock's down. If you look at the chart, it's kind of laughable, actually. The Container Store, you remember that woman CEO who turned the company around left? Okay, and as soon as she leaves, stock's back in the crowd. Okay. You can't, it's hard to replace iconic CEOs. Really, really hard. MSGE missed, not surprising, the Knicks stink. QNST, CVS, it seems like they missed. I wouldn't count that stock out. NC is doing a stock offering. Okay, that's that. What else do we got? Okay, tonight we have earnings from IFF and MGM and Mattel. This guy at Mattel has beat numbers like as long as I can remember. Really good job. Sono and SGEN and Twilio and Disney. Ooh, let's not forget Disney. Okay, that should be the interesting one to me. And tomorrow we have Coca-Cola, Twitter, Pepsi, and one of my faves, Datadog. Okay, so that's that. Okay. Research, let's see what we have here. The big call on the day is big, neutral to sell, Matt Boss. Inflation officially affecting their core customers. Home-related goods make up 61%, and their core customers moving away from spending on their home to spending on other things. So he was negative on that one. INC equal to sell at Lyric. Space target goes from 22 to 10 at Bernstein. This guy, whatever his name is, Palamatia or whatever his name is, he is really in the penalty box. Stay away from anything he's involved in, is my opinion. Okay, that's really it on the short side. Okay, on the long side, anything interesting? Penn Gaming was upgraded by Susquehanna. I'm not sure the quality of this analyst, but he upgraded, basically saying that the digital business is priced too low. Okay, so that was his argument there. Daiwa, I don't know about this analyst. He goes from outperform to a buy. StockX fine. Deere, I like this call. He thinks they're going to beat at Baird based on the competitors having really good numbers. That makes a lot of sense to me. People are raising their targets in Chipotle. People raise their basically bullish bent in Peloton across the board. Morgan Stanley likes this SAFE. Thought that was a nice call. Let's see what else. I'm going to do this trade. I don't like the chart in car. A couple of analysts were neutral on it, and a bunch of guys were positive on DuPont. I like the chart in DuPont. I hate the chart in car. I am going to do a pair trade with those two. Okay. Par short, DuPont long. What else? What did Kathy do? Not that it really matters. Hood, she bought 770,000 shares. SE, she bought 112. Roblox, she bought 40,000. Teladoc, she bought 100. Again, buying stocks on their lows. Edit, she sold a little bit. Twitter, she keeps selling. She sold 1 million shares. Now they report, so keep that in mind. So that's that. What else do we want to look at today? We have that. We have that. Syndicate-wise, we have 5 IPOs this week. All 5 are from third-tier firms. We have SOPA did a secondary, so you got to start watching that crap again when you're long these tiny names. You run the risk of getting snafu by a secondary, which happened in this one. I don't know if anybody's long it, but you got to keep an eye on that stuff for sure. Trying to see what I said here. Insider buying, you had MRSN and USER. And let's look at group rotation, okay? I think the auto stocks should be good today. I'm a little concerned by the banks. I think the opening names should continue to do well. Okay, airlines, cruise lines, hotels, those kinds of names, all right? But based upon what the Fed is saying, I wouldn't be surprised if you got a hard bounce back in these high PE and FANG names, okay? If I had always said that you got to worry about the slope of the rate increases, how quick it is. And if they're going to be pragmatic, then these stocks can bounce, okay? They've gotten beaten to shit, and there's plenty of room for them to go up. And I think that's and if this Russia thing goes away and energy prices fall back, this sets up a good narrative for high PE names. So that's something I'm going to focus on as well. Okay. And if those things go up, then they're going to sell. If high beta goes up, they're going to sell low beta. And that would be consumer non-durables, drug stocks, and stuff like that. Okay. All right. That's it for me. I'm out of time. Spartan, it's all yours.
All righty. Thank you, South Beach. Guys, morning. What's going on? Let's do a quick little recap of what we talked about this morning. If you guys are new to chat, go to the new to chat information section, read from top down. We'll go through that in just a second. Let's go through the pre-market tickers on watch. Everything's posted here. If you guys are watching the YouTube stream, you can simply just pause this and read it. There you go. There you go. All the charts are posted. Action plans posted. And then the option side, same thing right there. Might be a little bit too small. So there you go. Okay. Let's take a look at what we got going on today, guys. Pre-market tickers on watch: CMG, Tesla, Shop, EMPH, Newer, and TCS. CMG earnings beat EPS and revs, year-over-year growth 22%. Tesla gapping up in sympathy with the market. Shop gapping up in sympathy with the market. EMPH earnings beat EPS and revs, year-over-year growth 55.8%. Q1 guidance raised. Stocks gapping up. Newer earnings miss. EPS and rev beat, year-over-year growth 22.4%. Q4 guidance lowered. EPS and rev in line. And lastly, TCS earnings beat EPS and revs, year-over-year growth -3%. Q4 guidance lowered. EPS and rev in line. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. First two we're looking at today, guys, CMG and Tesla. Let's have a gander at these. CMG, Tesla. CMG, pivot to the upside today. 1563.98. Levels able to hold. 1599.86 will be tested. That level breaks. We can see further continuation on the upside to 1631. Unable to hold, look for pullback to 1523 to 1500 on the downside, leading bullish. Looking for a continuation push higher today on that name. Tesla pivot upside 926.39. That level breaks 948 to 980 will be tested. Unable to hold 886, 858 on the downside. Big level on Tesla today is at 948. We got to see if we can break through it. That's the range resistance on the flag to the upside now. Shop and EMPH. Let's take a look at these two. Shop gapping up. 916 pivot level holds 958, 999 will be tested. Unable to hold 879 to 839. Big level on that pivot, guys. Watch it. If it fails, look to short Shop. I think if it gets back above it, we can get a nice little push. EMPH pivot upside today is going to be that 174.96. Level holds 191.58 to 203, I think it is. Unable to hold 161.67 to 147.46 on the downside, leaning bullish neutral on EMPH. Let's take a look at Newer. Let's take a look at TCS. Newer, 810, 8110 pivot upside. Level holds 85.62, 90.61 on a bounce. Unable to hold 75.57 to 70.52, leaning bearish neutral. Looking for a pop, rejection at resistance levels, and a sell-off. Let's take a look at TCS. Pivot 817, levels unable to hold 747 to 697, able to hold 878, 934. Leaning bearish out the gate, looking for a pull into lower end supports and then a bounce off of those levels there. Let's take a look at the spine of the FANG. Now, market, nice little gap up today. Important levels on the upside now. I do like the daily chart, but the 50 MA is going to be the big key right now. 455.92, pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold room higher into the 458.33 resistance. Breaks, we see the 460.03 test level tested. Okay, one sec. Higher. Breaks. We can't say. See the 460.03 level tested. Levels unable to hold, pivot unable to hold, room lower into the 453.64 support. Breaks, we see the 450.90 tested on the downside. Leaning bullish, but pivot needed for confirmation. Pivot reclaim. So we got to reclaim that 50 MA on the daily, guys, if we're going to get continuation to the upside today. If not, rejection, we get a pullback. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that just because the VIX is extended to the upside today or downside today. It's quite extended to the downside, actually. So it would be super shocking to see that. Okay, so that is that. Let's take a look at the spine or the FANG. Apple, first up. So flagging on the daily looks good for continuation. If we can hold the pivot, 176.32, that level holds, 179.58 will be tested. Unable to hold 173.90 on the downside, leaning bullish neutral on that. Let's take a look at Amazon. Pivot to the upside today is the 32.54 level holds, 33.42, unable to hold 31.30, 30.60 on the downside, leaning bullish neutral on that as well. Let's take a look at Facebook. Pivot to the upside today, guys, is going to be the 224.64. Levels able to hold 233.83. Unable to hold 215.37 on the downside, leading bullish, neutral on that. And then last but not least, guys, Google pivot upside is going to be the 28.14. Levels able to hold 28.65 to 28.92. Unable to hold 27.59 to 27.05, leaning bullish, neutral on that as well. Let's take a look at the Vix Cues and IWM. Vix 21.17, unable to hold today, 2017 to 19.28. Unable to reclaim that pivot, 22.51 on the upside will be retested. Not leaning any particular direction on the VIX, but using it for direction on the SPY, guys. So keep an eye on that today, always important. Let's take a look at the last but not least. QQQs, IWM. Qs leaning bullish on the daily, 362.56. Level holds 365.33 to the 369.45 will be tested. Unable to hold 358.48 to 355.35. Overall on the Qs, leaning bullish, neutral. And then last but not least, guys, IWM. Pivot to the upside today is going to be the 204.81. Level holds 207.09. Unable to hold 203.01, 201 on the downside. Overall on IWM, leaning bullish, neutral. Looking for a continuation push higher today. So yeah, I think, overall things are set up for continuation. We'll see what happens. Going to be unloading those SPY calls out the gate, and yeah, should be an interesting day. You guys are watching the YouTube stream. We do this every single week, so we'll see you next week. Daily recaps posted daily, obviously.